On the eve of what would have been the happiest day of my life, I discovered that the woman I loved was in bed with my boss. I'd been working like crazy for 3 years, putting in overtime every day to save money for our dream wedding. And her? She was betraying all of this for ambition and power. But what they didn't expect was my revenge. Today I'll tell you how I destroyed both their careers and how this betrayal changed my life forever. If you want to know how justice was served, stay until the end because you won't believe what happened. If you like stories of overcoming injustice, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. Hello everyone, my name is Carlos, and today I'm going to share with you the most painful and yet liberating story of my life. A story that begins with love, dedication, and dreams, but takes a turn I never imagined possible. But before I continue telling my story and how it all happened, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'd love to hear where you're from. It all started 4 years ago, when I met Amanda in English class. She was one of those women who caught the attention of every man she passed. Blonde hair, green eyes, and a smile that lit up any room. I was just an ordinary guy, working as a financial analyst at a mid-sized company, earning a salary that barely covered basic bills. Even so, by some miracle, Amanda agreed to go out with me. Our first date was at a simple diner because that was what I could afford at the time. She said she didn't care, that what mattered was us being together. Those words etched themselves in my heart like a promise of true love. 2 years later, I proposed. It was a simple proposal, with a ring I paid for in 12 installments, but she said yes with tears in her eyes. From that moment on, my life became a race against time. I wanted to give her the wedding she deserved, the party of her dreams, the perfect honeymoon. I started working double time, accepting any overtime, any additional project. My boss, Ricardo, even joked that I lived more at the office than at home. After our engagement, my routine changed completely. I'd wake up at 5 in the morning to get to the office early and leave after 10 at night. Weekends? I'd forgotten they existed. I was always at the office or doing freelance work from home to earn extra income. Amanda complained about my absence, but I explained it was temporary. Honey, it's just until the wedding. After that, we'll have a peaceful life, with money saved and no worries, I'd say as I reviewed reports at the kitchen table. She'd sigh and go watch TV alone on the couch. I thought she understood my sacrifice, that she saw my effort as proof of my love. My boss, Ricardo, always praised my dedication. He was a successful man in his early 40s, owner of an imported car and a luxurious apartment in the best neighborhood in the city. He had the confidence that only money and power can bring. He was always impeccably dressed, wore expensive perfume, and wore a watch that cost more than my annual salary. "Carlos, you're the most dedicated employee I've ever had. Keep it up and success will come," he said, patting my shoulder. I felt valued, recognized. I thought I was on the right path, that my efforts were being noticed by the right people. How wrong I was about everything. During these intense months of work, Amanda began attending more company events, holiday parties, happy hours, get-togethers. I was always too busy to accompany her, so she went alone or with the wives of other employees. "I need a social life, Carlos. I can't stay locked up at home waiting for you to arrive," she argued. I agreed, of course. I thought it was only fair that she should have fun while I worked for our future. Ricardo always commented on how elegant and polite Amanda was, and what a lucky man I was. He offered her a ride when I couldn't pick her up, invited her to lunches with important clients. I saw it as kindness, as recognition. The wedding bills were piling up. Catering, decorations, dress, honeymoon. Each budget that arrived was a shock, but I was determined. I took out loans, maxed out my credit card, sold my old car. Amanda deserved the best, and I would make any sacrifice to give it to her. It was my proof of love, my way of showing her she'd chosen the right man. In the final weeks before the wedding, I began to notice subtle changes in Amanda's behavior. She was more dressed up, wearing different perfumes, new clothes. When I asked where these new things came from, she said they were gifts from friends or promotions she'd gotten. I was so focused on the final preparations that I didn't question her further. Ricardo also seemed different to me. He was more attentive, asking about wedding preparations and offering help with vendors. "I know an excellent photographer, Carlos. I can get you a discount," he suggested. I thanked him for his generosity, thinking I was lucky to work for such an understanding and friendly boss. A week before the wedding, Amanda suggested we have a separate bachelorette party. "It's tradition, honey. You have fun with your friends, I'll have fun with mine. It'll be our last night of freedom before we become husband and wife," she said with a smile that I interpreted as affectionate at the time. But now I realized there was something sinister behind it. The last week before the wedding was a complete whirlwind. I was sleeping only 3 hours a night, rushing through the final details, confirming vendors, and checking the guest list. Amanda seemed strangely calm, almost absent. When I talked about the wedding, she responded automatically, without the enthusiasm I expected from a bride. "Aren't you excited, Amanda?" I asked one of those nights when I came home and found her watching TV, completely oblivious to the wedding planning papers spread out on the table. She looked at me with an expression I couldn't decipher at the time. "Of course I am, Carlos. It's just pre-wedding jitters." "It's normal," she replied, returning her eyes to the screen. At work, Ricardo was especially helpful. He'd let me off early a few times, ask if I needed anything, and even suggest I take Friday off to rest before the big day. "A groom needs to look radiant at his wedding, Carlos. Amanda deserves to see you at your best," he said with a smile that now makes me nauseous. During that week, I noticed Amanda was receiving a lot of text messages on her cell phone. Whenever it rang, she'd quickly pick it up and answer it from another room. "It's about the bachelorette party," she'd explain when I showed curiosity. "The girls are planning a surprise for me. You can't know the details." I thought it was cute, imagining my friends preparing something special for her. On Thursday, 2 days before the wedding, Amanda announced she would be sleeping at her mother's house. "It's tradition, Carlos. The bride can't see the groom the day before the wedding. It's bad luck," she said, packing some clothes. I protested, saying such superstitions were nonsense, that I'd rather she stayed. But she insisted, saying she'd already promised her mother. "Besides, you'll be enjoying your bachelor party with your friends. It'll be good for you to relax a bit after all that work," she added, kissing me on the cheek. A cold, mechanical kiss, lacking the usual passion. I should have known something was wrong, but I was too exhausted to process the signs. On Friday, the day before the wedding, I woke up with a strange feeling. It wasn't normal groom's jitters. It was something deeper, a restlessness I couldn't explain. I called Amanda, but she didn't answer. I texted her saying I loved her and couldn't wait to see her at the altar the next day. She responded with just a heart emoji. At the office, the day passed slowly. I could barely concentrate on work, thinking about the next day. Ricardo stopped by my desk a few times, asked if everything was okay, and offered to finish my pending reports. "Today is your last day as a single man, Carlos. Enjoy it. Tomorrow your life changes forever," he said with that smile that I now know hid the worst of betrayals. My friends had planned my bachelor party at a bar near downtown. Nothing fancy, just a few drinks and conversation. I wasn't in the mood for a party, but they insisted it was tradition. I left the office at 6 in the evening and went home to shower and get ready. The house was too quiet without Amanda. I felt a pang of loneliness that I tried to ignore. Before leaving, I tried calling Amanda again. I wanted to hear her voice, to make sure everything was okay between us. The phone rang and then went to voicemail. I left a sweet message, telling her I loved her and looking forward to our big day. I had no idea that at that very moment, the woman I loved was destroying all our plans and my heart along with it. The bachelor party was a disaster. I couldn't relax, drink, or have the fun my friends expected. My mind was on the next day's wedding, on the last things I needed to confirm, and especially on Amanda. Something inside me told me something was wrong, but I tried to ignore it. At 10 o'clock, I made up an excuse and left the bar. I told my friends I was tired and needed to rest to look perfect for the wedding. They protested but understood. On the way home, I decided to stop by Amanda's mother's house to say a quick goodnight to my future wife. I wanted to see her, even if it was just for 5 minutes. When I arrived at her mother's street, I saw that the lights were off. I thought it was strange, since it was only 10:30 at night. I rang the doorbell a few times, but no one answered. The neighbor, Donna Maria, appeared at the window and told me she hadn't seen Amanda or her mother at home all day. "The house has been locked since morning, my son," she said. My heart began to race. If Amanda wasn't at her mother's house, where was she? I called her cell phone, but it was still off. I tried calling her mother, but she didn't answer either. A terrible anguish began to grip me. I decided to go to some places where she might be, friends' houses, places we used to hang out. After driving around for 2 hours without finding her, a crazy idea crossed my mind. What if she was at Ricardo's apartment? He'd offered the location for some company planning meetings, and Amanda had been there a few times with other employees' wives. Maybe it was some last-minute meeting for her bachelorette party. I drove to Ricardo's apartment building, a luxurious building downtown. The doorman knew me from the few times I'd been there for work meetings. "Good evening, Mr. Carlos. Are you here to see Dr. Ricardo?" he asked. I lied, saying yes, that we had an urgent meeting. He let me in without suspecting anything. I climbed to the 15th floor with my heart pounding. I didn't know exactly what I was doing there, but something was pulling me. When I reached Ricardo's apartment door, I heard voices coming from inside. One of them was unmistakably Amanda's. She was laughing, a hearty laugh I hadn't heard in months. I pressed my ear to the door, and what I heard made my world fall apart. Ricardo was talking about how naive I was, how I worked like a slave without realizing that my own fiancée preferred the company of her boss. Amanda laughed and agreed, saying horrible things about me, about how boring and obsessed with marriage I was. "Does he really think you're going to marry him tomorrow?" I heard Ricardo ask. "Let him dream a little longer," Amanda replied with a laugh. "After the wedding, when he's up to his eyeballs in debt, you promote me and we'll go public with our relationship. It'll be perfect." Each word was a knife to my heart. I stood frozen in the doorway, unable to process what I was hearing. The woman I loved, the woman I'd worked day and night for years, was betraying me in the cruelest way possible. And my boss, a man I trusted and respected, was complicit in this terrible farce. Everything I'd built, all my dreams, were being shattered in that moment. I continued listening behind the door, in utter shock, as Amanda and Ricardo detailed the entire plan they'd devised at my expense. Each word I heard was worse than the last. I discovered they'd been together for over 6 months, ever since that company holiday party she'd gone to alone because I was working. "It was so easy to win her over, Carlos," Ricardo said mockingly. "All you had to do was show her what a real man can offer. Expensive restaurants, designer gifts, weekend getaways while you were here sweating in the office." Amanda laughed as if it were the funniest thing in the world. I remembered those weekends she'd say she'd go visit friends in other cities. Their plan was diabolical in its simplicity. Amanda would marry me on Saturday, and I would assume all the debts of the incredibly expensive wedding she had helped plan. During our honeymoon, Ricardo would insist on overloading me with work, creating problems at the company that I would have to resolve even from afar. This would ruin our trip and cause arguments between us. "In 3 months at most, she'll file for divorce," Ricardo explained as if it were a business plan. "She'll claim incompatibility, that you're a workaholic, that you don't pay attention to her. With the divorce, she'll get half the assets, including the apartment you bought, and I'll officially take over. You'll only be left with the marital debts." Amanda finished her argument. "And best of all, Ricardo will give me a position in the company as human resources manager. We'll work together every day, earn well, and you'll have to see us happy while you pay the bills for our scheme." They laughed together as if they were the smartest criminals in the world. I discovered that the expensive gifts Amanda had received from her friends, the new clothes, the imported perfumes, all came from Ricardo. He paid for her expenses while I went into debt for the wedding. Even the wedding dress, which cost a fortune and required me to take out a loan, had been chosen by Ricardo in one of his meetings with Amanda. "Did you see how happy he was when I offered him a discount on the photographer?" Ricardo commented. "The idiot doesn't know the photographer is my friend and will be perfectly documenting the wedding of the woman who is already mine. The photos will be great to show our children in the future." Amanda sighed romantically, as if hearing a declaration of love. They also commented on how easy it was to manipulate me into working even harder. Every compliment Ricardo gave me about my dedication, every incentive to work overtime, every additional project he gave me. It was all part of the plan to keep me away from home and give their relationship room to thrive without me suspecting. The funniest thing is he actually believes he's doing this for love, Amanda said cruelly. Poor thing, working like hell to pay for the wedding of a woman who prefers another man. If he weren't so pathetic, I'd even be sorry. Those words were like a punch in the gut. The woman I loved spoke of me as if I were an insect. At that moment, I made the most important decision of my life. I wasn't going to let them destroy me. If they wanted to play dirty, I would show them I could play dirty too. I grabbed my phone and started recording everything they were saying, every word, every laugh, every detail of the criminal plan they had devised against me. They had no idea their conversation was being documented. I stayed behind that door for another hour, recording every word of Amanda and Ricardo's conversation. My hand trembled as I held my phone, but I knew I needed concrete proof of what was happening. My word against theirs wasn't enough. I needed irrefutable evidence of the betrayal and the scam they were playing on me. During that hour, I discovered even more shocking details. Ricardo had promised Amanda an engagement ring that cost 10 times more than the one I gave her. After you get rid of Carlos, we'll go to Paris and I'll propose to you the way you deserve, Dar, he said. Amanda practically melted upon hearing this. They also planned to use confidential company information to harm my career. Ricardo talked about how he would create situations to embarrass me in front of the CEO, invent errors in my reports and make me appear incompetent and irresponsible. When he's unemployed and in debt, Amanda will have even more reason to break up with him, Ricardo explained coldly. I listened to Amanda tell me how she feigned affection for me when she got home. It's a terrible sacrifice to have to kiss him and pretend I feel something, she said with disgust. But it's necessary to keep up the charade until tomorrow. After the wedding, I won't have to pretend so much anymore. Each word was like a knife to my already broken heart. The conversation also revealed that they had had sex several times in my own apartment, in my bed while I was working. Remember that afternoon you pretended you were going to the doctor? Ricardo asked, laughing. We made love at his place, and then you cooked dinner for him when he got home. He ate it, thanking me without knowing I'd been there before. Amanda laughed as if it were the smartest thing in the world. I discovered that several people at the company already knew about their relationship, but no one had the courage to tell me. Ricardo had spread the word that I was a violent and jealous man, that if he found out I might do something crazy. That's why no one will say anything, he said. Everyone thinks they're protecting me from a madman. It was astonishing how he had manipulated even my colleagues. When I finally stopped recording, my phone had nearly 2 hours of compromising audio. I had proof of everything: the betrayal, the financial scam they were planning, the manipulation at work, the plans to undermine me at the company. It was enough material to destroy them both the way they deserved. But I needed more than audio. I went down to my car and waited on the street. I knew Amanda would come out of the apartment at some point. Around 2 in the morning, I saw her leaving the building. She had a satisfied expression on her face, like someone who had just accomplished something truly pleasurable. When she got into her car, I followed her at a safe distance. To my surprise, Amanda didn't go to her mother's house. She went straight to our apartment. She arrived home, took a long shower, changed the sheets, and went to bed as if nothing had happened. I stayed in the car watching our window, watching the light go out, knowing she was sleeping peacefully after betraying me in the worst possible way. It was then that an idea struck me. I had the keys to Ricardo's apartment, as he'd given me a copy months earlier so I could retrieve some important documents when he traveled. At the time, I thought it was a sign of trust. Now I realized it was just another way he was using me. But these keys could be my revenge. I returned to Ricardo's building at 3 in the morning. The night porter was dozing, so I managed to sneak upstairs. I used my keys to let myself into the apartment. What I saw confirmed everything I'd heard. There were 2 wine glasses on the table, the sofa was unmade, and in the bedroom I found Amanda's underwear thrown on the floor. It was the physical proof I needed. I arrived home at 5 in the morning, just 3 hours before the wedding preparations were scheduled to begin. Amanda was still sound asleep, probably exhausted after her night with Ricardo. I sat in the living room chair and watched her sleep, wondering how I hadn't realized I was sharing my bed with a stranger. At 7 in the morning, Amanda woke up and pretended to be surprised to see me awake. "Honey, didn't you sleep? Are you nervous about the wedding?" she asked with an Oscar-worthy performance. If I hadn't known everything I'd learned the night before, I would have believed her feigned concern. "I'm just looking forward to seeing my beautiful bride at the altar," I replied, testing how far she would go with the charade. While Amanda was showering and getting ready, I called some of the closest guests and asked them to arrive at the church early. He said he had a special surprise for everyone and they didn't want to miss it. I also called the photographer, the same one Ricardo had gotten a discount for, and asked him to focus on people's expressions during the ceremony. Ricardo arrived at the church an hour early, elegant as ever. He greeted me with that fake smile and wished me happiness. "Today's your big day, Carlos. Amanda will look beautiful as a bride," he said, patting my shoulder. If he'd known what I had in store for him, he wouldn't have been so confident and smiling. My parents arrived, thrilled, my mother crying with happiness, thinking she'd finally see me married. Several colleagues from the company were present, including the company's CEO, Mr. Martins, a man of integrity who always valued honesty and loyalty. Everyone was there expecting a traditional wedding ceremony. They had no idea what a spectacle I'd prepared. When Amanda arrived at the church, she looked truly stunning in the dress that cost me 3 months' salary. For a moment I felt a pang of pain remembering how much I loved her, but soon, anger returned as I remembered the cruel words she had said about me the night before. She smiled at me like the most loving bride in the world. The priest began the ceremony with traditional words about love, fidelity, and eternal commitment. Each word rang with irony, considering what I knew about Amanda and Ricardo. When it came time to take the vows, the priest asked if I would take Amanda as my wife for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do us part. That's when I decided to act. Instead of saying "I do," I grabbed my phone and connected it to the church's sound system. Before I answer that question, I'd like everyone to hear something very important about the woman I'm about to marry, I said loudly to all the guests. Amanda turned pale, and Ricardo tried to get up from his chair. I began playing the recording of Amanda and Ricardo's conversation. The sound echoed throughout the church, every word of the betrayal heard by the 200 guests present. I could hear the woman who was betraying me laughing at my efforts, planning to use me and then discard me. The silence in the church was deathly. Amanda tried to snatch the phone from my hand, screaming that it was a lie, that someone was trying to harm us. Ricardo got up and tried to leave through the side door, but some of my friends stopped him. The company's CEO, Mr. Martins, wore an expression of shock and indignation that I will never forget. All the guests watched in disbelief as the drama unfolded in front of the altar. After playing the full recording, which spanned over 15 minutes of the worst moments, the church was completely silent. Amanda had stopped trying to deny it and was crying at the altar, but they weren't tears of regret. They were tears of anger at having been discovered. Ricardo remained paralyzed, knowing that his career and reputation had just been publicly destroyed. So I took the microphone from the priest and spoke to all the guests. For 3 years, I worked day and night to make this wedding happen. I took out loans, sold my possessions, and went up to my neck in debt because I thought I was investing in our love. I discovered last night that I was actually financing the betrayal of the woman I loved with my own boss. I showed them the photos I'd taken at Ricardo's apartment, the wine glasses, Amanda's underwear, the physical evidence of the betrayal. While I worked until dawn to save money for our honeymoon, they were in my bed in my house laughing at me. They planned to use me until I was completely in debt, and then Amanda would file for divorce so she could keep half the assets. The company's CEO, Mr. Martins, stood up and asked to speak. "Ricardo, you are terminated for cause effective immediately. We do not tolerate employees who use their position to manipulate and harm colleagues. You will have to explain your actions to the company's legal department on Monday." Ricardo tried to argue, but Mr. Martins cut him off. "Get out of my sight immediately." Amanda, realizing the situation was hopeless, went on the attack. She began accusing me of being an obsessive, controlling man who only thought about work and never paid attention to her. "You neglected me, Carlos. A real man doesn't leave his wife alone for months," she screamed, as if she were the victim of the situation. But no one was buying that act after hearing the recording. My mother, who was initially shocked, approached Amanda and said something I will never forget. "Girl, my son worked like a slave to give you the wedding of your dreams. He truly loved you, and you betrayed him in the worst way possible. You don't even deserve the tears he shed for you." Amanda tried to respond, but my mother cut her off. "Get out of my sight before I do something I will regret." The guests began to protest. Some of my coworkers approached me to support me, saying they'd always been suspicious of Ricardo's actions but never imagined it would come to this. Several people began to leave the church, clearly embarrassed by the situation. Amanda's family members quickly left, embarrassed by her behavior. Ricardo tried one last desperate move. He approached me and said, "Carlos, we can talk and resolve this like men. You don't need to destroy my career over a woman." It was the last straw. I responded loudly for everyone to hear. "Ricardo, you destroyed 3 years of my life, manipulated me, betrayed me, planned to leave me in debt, and you still want me to feel sorry for you?" The photographer, who was documenting everything, came to me and said, "Carlos, I didn't know anything about this. Ricardo asked me to photograph the wedding, but I didn't know it was part of a scam. I can give you all the photos for free and even a written statement about the conversations I had with him." It was further evidence of Ricardo's manipulation. Amanda made one last dramatic attempt. She knelt at the altar and began to cry, begging for forgiveness, saying it was a moment of weakness, that she truly loved me. But her own recorded words condemned her. Everyone had heard her laughing at my efforts, calling me pathetic, coldly plotting my financial and emotional destruction. Then I addressed the guests one last time. "I apologize to everyone for wasting your time coming here today. I know many of you have traveled far, taken time off work, and bought gifts. You came here believing you were going to witness a celebration of true love. But you discovered with me that it was just an elaborate hoax. I want you to know that I will not hold a grudge against anyone who has been deceived like I was. We are all victims of these two's lies. But today at least the truth came out before I made the mistake of marrying someone who neither respected nor loved me." Several people clapped, a gesture of support that deeply touched me. I left the church with my head held high, leaving Amanda crying at the altar in her expensive dress and Ricardo being escorted out by security. The visibly shaken priest officially canceled the ceremony and asked everyone to leave calmly. My parents accompanied me, saying they were proud of my courage in facing the situation. Outside the church, several friends and coworkers came to congratulate me. "You were brave, Carlos. Many men would have married without knowing anything and discovered the betrayal later," my friend João said. "At least now you're free to start your life over with dignity." These words gave me the strength to move forward. In the days following what should have been my wedding, my life was turned upside down, but in a positive way. The story spread quickly throughout the company and the city. Some people reached out to express solidarity, others simply out of morbid curiosity. But I was at peace with myself, knowing I had done the right thing. Ricardo was fired for cause and also faced disciplinary proceedings within the company for abuse of authority and moral harassment. The CEO, Mr. Bar Martins, called me into his office the following Monday and offered me a promotion. "Carlos, your dedication and integrity have always been exemplary. I'm sorry you had to go through this, but I admire your courage in exposing the truth," he said. The promotion came with a significant pay raise and the responsibility of leading the team previously led by Ricardo. Ironically, I ended up getting exactly what they had planned to take from me. Some colleagues commented that it was poetic justice. I had worked so hard to afford a betrayal, and I ended up being rewarded for my dedication. Amanda tried to reach me several times in the first few weeks. She called, texted, showed up at my building, always with the same speech, that she'd made a mistake, that she truly loved me, that we could start over. But I no longer felt anything for her. It was as if that recording had definitively killed any feelings I still harbored. I discovered that she had to move back in with her parents because she couldn't afford to keep the apartment we had rented together. Without the financial support of Ricardo, who was also unemployed and in debt, Amanda found herself in the situation they had planned for me. Life has these ironies sometimes. The evil we plan for others often comes back to haunt us. The process of canceling all wedding services was laborious, but I managed to recover about 60% of what I had spent. Some vendors were understanding and refunded the full amount. With the promotion and this recovered money, I was able to pay off most of the debt I had taken on for the wedding in just a few months. 3 months after the church incident, she learned that Ricardo had gotten a job in another city, earning much less than he had previously. Amanda, according to mutual friends, was working at a clothing store in the mall, far from the luxurious life Ricardo had promised her. They tried to maintain a long-distance relationship, but it didn't last even 6 months. Psychologically, going through this experience strengthened me in ways I never imagined possible. I began therapy to process all the betrayal and manipulation I had suffered. I learned a lot about relationships, about warning signs, about the importance of not completely sacrificing myself for another person, even for love. I also rediscovered hobbies and friendships I'd neglected during the years of obsessively working toward marriage. I started playing sports again, going out with friends, and traveling. I realized how much I'd lost trying to be the perfect boyfriend for someone who didn't value me. It was as if I'd regained my identity. A year later, I met Marina at a company event. She was an external consultant, intelligent, independent, and professionally successful. Our relationship developed naturally, unhurriedly, with mutual respect and genuine admiration. She knew my story and admired how I had handled the situation. Today, we've been dating for 2 years and are building a relationship based on true trust. Folks, this was my story. One of the most painful, yet also most liberating experiences of my life. Today, 4 years after that day in church, I can say it was the best thing that ever happened to me. If I had gotten married without discovering the betrayal, I would have lived a lie and would likely be financially and emotionally ruined. I learned that true love isn't about working yourself to the bone to impress someone. It's not about completely sacrificing yourself for someone else. True love is about partnership, about building together, about mutual respect. Amanda never loved me. She loved the idea of someone doing everything for her while she had fun with another man. Ricardo wasn't my friend. He was a predator who took advantage of my dedication to manipulate my life. I want to leave an important message for those watching. If you're in a relationship where you feel like you're giving much more than you're receiving, where your partner doesn't appreciate your efforts, where you have to sacrifice yourself to please the other person, stop and reflect. Healthy relationships are based on reciprocity, respect, and mutual admiration. Never accept crumbs of affection from someone who should love you completely. If this story touched you in any way, subscribe to the channel, like it, and tell us in the comments which part resonated with you most. And remember, you deserve to be truly loved, not used by someone who only thinks of themselves. Until next time, and thanks for following my story.